Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you here for our Wednesday night prayer meeting. We'll begin this evening by singing Footsteps of Jesus. So let's all stand and sing. Sweetly, Lord, have we heard thee calling, come, follow me. And we see where thy footprints falling lead us to thee. Footprints of Jesus that make the pathway glow. We will follow the steps of Jesus where'er they go. Though they lead o'er the cold, dark mountains seeking his sheep, or along by Siloam's fountains helping the weak. Footprints of Jesus that make the pathway glow. We will follow the steps of Jesus where'er they go. Then at last when on high he sees us, our journey done, we will rest where the steps of Jesus end at his throne. Footprints of Jesus that make the pathway glow. We will follow the steps of Jesus where'er they go. Thank you, and you can be seated.
I'd like to tell y'all just a little bit about our children that went to Central Kid Camp this summer. At the end of June, June the 26th through July the 3rd, Breck Mills took 3 of our boys to Central Kid Camp at the University of West Alabama in Livingston, Alabama. And Central Kid always puts on a great camp for the kids. They have a lot of worship. They really, one of their favorite things they do is they have a worship service. They have a preaching time. They have games that they play. They have fun activities, but it's all related to the theme. And they do a really good job of the camp that they have there. And I want to thank the church, too, for allowing our children to go. The church always pays for half of the camp fee, maybe a little more than half of the camp fee for our children. So we are so grateful that we get to participate. Last year, we had all girls that went. This year, we had all boys. Next year, we hope that it's a mix. We should have a lot more that get to go next year. But I know I was so appreciative of Breck for taking our boys and taking a week of his vacation time, time he could have been at home, to do that with our boys on a Monday through Friday. So Breck's going to tell you what he did and what he enjoyed, and then the boys are going to tell you a little bit about what they did at camp.
First off, start by saying it was a huge blessing to me to be able to carry those 3. It was my first time going to Central Kid Camp, as well as it was their first time to be able to go to Central Kid Camp. So I'm looking forward to going back with those 3 for sure, and hopefully many, many more next year. Encouragement, if you have a kid that's able to go in the age group, I really, really encourage parents and grandparents to encourage the kids to go, because it is such a fun experience just for them and for me also, and whoever goes as a chaperone. The biggest thing for me was to see those 3 The first night we got there, in worship service, they always play music, and all the people that work at the camp, they're all like jumping and dancing, and those three, they kind of just sat over there and kind of looked around like they didn't really know what was going on. But, they always say music is a ministry also. And by the last night, those three were up out of their chairs doing the same dances that the people going up and down the aisles were doing. So music is a ministry, and we had a really, really good time. They enjoyed the rec time for sure, because I let them have a little bit of freedom. I'd let them go and do their little own thing, kind of away from me. So they enjoyed a little bit of freedom. Boys, y'all want to say something? Who wants to go first?
Well, Century Kid, it was fun, and I loved the music. It was awesome, and recreation time. It was fun for all of us, and the worship. It was good. One thing I did not know, that Tyreek Hill, one of my favorite NFL players, went to University of West Alabama. That was pretty cool that I did not know about. But the cafeteria, I like to eat. It was pretty good. But, like, Mr. Breck, he would let us go and let us roam around and do our own thing. But on track A and track B, it was like our sports and fun time, and it was pretty fun. We all had basketball together for track A, and then you had OMC, which was pretty fun, and you get with shaving cream and water balloons and with Band-Aids and everything. So that's all I got to say.
I have to say Century Kid's one of the most funnest things I've ever did in my life. It's one of the funnest things ever, especially OMC day. We had to take showers like all day. It was I love the tracks because it was just really fun to do the tracks. Basketball is one of my favorite sports, and I got to do it, and that's all I gotta say.
Century Kid was really fun. One of my favorite ones was the basketball. We had to do drills, and the funnest thing that was there was OMC.
All right, I think Amanda's going to take are you staying? Are they acting good? They're going to stay. Okay. All right, the week prior to them going to camp, me and Teresa took 6 youth to Fuge, Mississippi College. We've been there like 3 different times. We know the campus well. We're comfortable on that campus, and it's always been a good experience. One thing about Fuge that I think all of our kids enjoy is how they spend such time in worship. And not only do we spend time in group worship with everyone else, we have our own time. We have church worship each and every night. When we go into our individual groups, normally I try to have something prepared in the lines with what they have been through all that day to go over that night. And the first night, it's always total silence from the group. But by the end of the week, the group pretty much were talking about things in the Bible, things that they were learning, things that they had focused on that week. And it was great to watch kind of kids come out of their shell. And that always happens at camp from day 1 to day 6. We have a 6-day camp that we go to. And one thing, I guess, and Teresa's been with me several times, our role is not only as parenting our kids, but we seem to always wind up being parents to the staff that are there. Because normally they're all teenagers that are my kids' age. And from the first day, we have a person that's dedicated to our group. So they're hanging out with us. By the end of the week, everybody's wanting to come sit with where we're at in the lunchroom, or when we're out and about, they come because those kids are away from home. I mean, there was one from Texas, one from Kentucky, and Laura Beth was from where? I think Louisiana, I think. So she was the closest of everything. So they were missing home as well. And we kind of filled a role of being a father and a mother figure for them for that week, not only for our kids but for those others. And it's such a blessing for y'all to help us be able to do this each and every year, because last year I had a group of guys and we did just MVUge, and this year we stayed on campus because our group was a little bit younger, but still was such a blessing to go and participate. Now KJ and Abby are going to come up and share a little bit about camp.
Well, this was my last year of camp, and sad to say, but I'll never forget it. It was a great time. Camp's always a place I can just, it feels like you can just like talk to anyone that's there. Everybody's open, but like that first day, everybody's timid. Everybody doesn't know what they need to do just yet. But as the week goes on, it feels like everybody's hearts just open up to one another. In our group and outside of our group, even people like in your Bible study, quiet time, even just during the worship service, people open up to one another. Even if you don't know them from Adam, it's awesome. When you first get there, like, it's wild. Like, they're hyping you up. They get in our van. They make sure we're ready to have a great time. And let's see, tracks, you can't beat them. I think I had mostly sports this year, but I wound up doing a lot of stuff with other different tracks. Like, we just combine, and it'd just be like a group of like 70 people. And like, out of those 70, you'd probably meet over half or more. And it was just a blessing meeting other people from different states, getting to know what it's like for them, where they are, and just what they enjoy to do in their life. And spreading Christ to one another is a big thing, for sure. And but let's see, quiet time might actually be my favorite time of the whole entire trip, because like Mr. Scott said, he brings something from each service that night, but there's one specific night that was special to us. It's kind of like, it's helped me over the years to learn how to pray a lot better, because we pray about one another and what we want each other to grow in our lives and what we're going to do going forward. And this year was a rough one for me, but I got through it, and it was a blessing to my heart, and hopefully the people I prayed for, hearts too. But it's sad to say it's my last year, but camp's always going to have a special place in my heart, and I'll never forget it.
This is my first year going to camp, and it was just so much fun, like, getting closer to, like, the people who, like, we hang out with every Wednesday, but you get so much closer when you're there with each other all week. And during our, like, church quiet time, just a lot more people, like, opened up and, like, praying over for each other. And, like, Brother Scott and Miss Teresa made it, like, super easy to feel like you could say anything and talk about anything that you needed to. And also with, like, going to rec and everything, you meet tons of new people that just from all over everywhere, and you just get to make lots of new friends, even if you don't see them the next year. But just like with worship and everything, you just feel so much closer to God when you're surrounded by everybody who wants to be there and worship Him with you.
Thank y'all. I think now we're fixing to watch. I think Brother Paul's fixing to speak to us. For those that have not heard, he brought the plague back with him from Utah, and he's home with it. So he's fixing to talk about Builders for Christ, I think. And then there's going to be a video on Builders for Christ, and I think Miss Barbara's going to come speak then.
Melanie and I made it in from our trip to Utah last night, or actually early this morning. And as is not uncommon, I have some sinus issues when I fly. And so I decided better go ahead and take a COVID test and took one this morning, and of course it is positive. So I am quarantining here tonight. But I want to talk to you about Builders for Christ. We had the chance to go to Laurel this year and help Pleasant Home Baptist Church rebuild. Their buildings were destroyed in the tornado a couple of years ago that came through on Easter. And we had 18 or so from our church who came and helped in one way or another. And we were able to move them way along in the process of getting back into their building. We had over 100 people that helped from a lot of different places. Melanie and I first went to Builders for Christ in 1986. We went to Tuttle, Oklahoma, and there were only 2 churches that were involved at that time, State Boulevard Baptist Church in Meridian and First Baptist Church of Collinsville. And one church would go one week, the other church would go the next week. And I think there were about 25 total that went. Now we have, as I said, sometimes 100, sometimes more than 100, and at least 5 states are represented by our group. And I don't know how many churches are represented too. Over the past 5 years since we've been at Calvary, it's been very convenient to go to Builders for Christ, for us at least. We've been at Enterprise, Chunky. Then in 2020, we didn't go at all because of the coronavirus. Then we went back to Chunky, and then this year, of course, in Laurel, Mississippi. It hasn't been that convenient over the years, and probably won't be in the future. We have built buildings in Oklahoma, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, Missouri, Texas, Louisiana, and of course, different places in Mississippi. It's always exciting to see God at work. There are a lot of logistical things that have to happen for us to be able to do this trip. First of all, we got to find a project that fits our group. God has been faithful each year to take us where He wanted us, and sometimes it happens right at the last minute. Seems like it always does, but sometimes it does. And then after we find the project, then we have to find housing for, this year probably 60 people. When we go off places further, it's more than that. So we have to house 100, have to feed 100, have to have a kitchen to be able to feed that many, have to have showers for that many. It's something we don't always think about, but everybody has to take a shower. And then it's always interesting to see His hand and who He sends. It never fails that if we have some specific skill that's needed on a job, God just sends that person. We don't always know who's coming, but people will come, and we're putting on a metal roof, a specialty metal roof at Cashiers Baptist Church in Cashiers, North Carolina. It just happened to be that there was a guy that does that for a living that came for the first time and only time. And so it's always interesting to see how God does that. But He also sends people that can cook, people that will carry water around and keep everybody hydrated, people that clean up on the job site, clean up in the kitchen, clean up after we eat, and of course people who build. He sends skilled workers, He sends workers who are willing to do whatever needs to be done. And it's always amazing how He puts these projects together. And it's always exciting to me because I get to work with believers for a whole week. When we were building houses years ago, that wasn't always the case. And it is very nice to be able to work with people who believe in Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. And the most important thing for them is helping this church to have a tool so that they can reach people for Christ. On these trips, Melanie and I have made some friends that are lifetime friends, friends that we keep up with, friends we talk to on a regular basis that otherwise we would not have even known. And many of them we picked up because we worked on a church that they went to or that they knew about. And so it's always exciting to go see God at work, meet people, see old friends that we've known for a while through Builders for Christ. It's also exciting to see some people using tools for the very first time. We have people that will take young people and help them to learn some of the skills and some of the trades that are needed to be able to do the job. And so Builders for Christ is an important ministry. It's important for the church that we help, but it's also important for those who go. We do devotionals every day, and we do include the gospel because we don't assume that everybody who comes is a believer, but we just want to glorify God by giving this church a tool, by helping them to have a tool to reach people for Christ, glorify God by building and acting toward each other in the way that Christians do, and by doing what we can to make sure that everybody that comes hears the gospel. And so it's an important ministry. Now Savannah's going to show you some pictures from our trip this year.
I've been restless on the inside, wondering about this heart of mine. I've been desperately trying to find a way to prove that I'm still alive. Has the love I speak so loudly of quietly grown cold? Has my life been an empty voice? What I say needs to be seen. I need to step out and make the choice to let go
I didn't realize I was going to be the only one speaking on the Builders for Christ besides Brother Paul. Where are y'all all at? Brad Smith. But yeah, this was my 4th year to go on Builders for Christ. And I would encourage anybody that's thinking about going to please go, because it's a week you'll never forget. Each year there was times where I didn't think I was going to be able to go, but the Lord worked it to where I could go. Now, I've never been all week, the whole 5 days or the 10 days, but I've been, one year I only went 1 day, and 1 year I only went 2 days. But this year I was able to go 3 days. And so, but those 3 days, you will get such a blessing that you just won't forget it. And the people that you meet, oh my gosh, they are such wonderful people. And like Brother Paul said, they come from all walks of life, and they come from many, many, many states. And some of them you'll see year to year, but some of them you won't see the next year, because it's kind of sad, because the first year I went, I met a lady that they called her the kitchen Nazi, because she ran the kitchen, and she ran a tight ship. But she was the sweetest lady. But everything in the kitchen has to run on time, because they feed early in the morning, and then they have a crew, ladies that they do nothing but get up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and they have the breakfast ready by like 6 or 6:30. I've never been there that early to see it, but they tell me about it. And but then the lunch has to be at a certain time, because when those guys finish on the work site at a certain time, we have to have the food down there for lunch. And then we clean up behind, we serve them, we clean up, and then we bring back, and then we start all over again, getting ready for supper. And I think the supper they eat maybe around 5:30 or 6 in the evening. But like Brother Paul said, each morning we had a devotional. And it would always be after they had cleaned up from the morning meal, and the workers had already gone out to the job site, and it would be just the ladies there. And Melanie would always have a memory verse and a story from the Bible that went along with that verse. And that always was my favorite time, because it reminded me that everybody there, that we were the hands and feet for Jesus there at Pleasant Home Baptist Church, and that we were there to show God's love to them. And that's what I myself needed to be reminded every day, because we got caught up in things would go wrong, or just didn't go like you thought it was supposed to go. And I had to just step back and remind myself what I was there for. That I wasn't there to get upset or and in the kitchen, everybody got along. If there was a problem, then we solved that problem. If there was issues, then we solved those issues. But I do have a kind of a little funny story to tell. On my first day there, I'll back up one. Usually the places that I've been with them, there's only one kitchen, and everybody has to work in that one big kitchen. Sometimes a small kitchen, just depending. But this particular place, which was Southeastern Bible College, they had 2 kitchens. So when we got there that Monday morning, Melanie was choosing and assigning where she wanted everybody to go, and who was going to be on the lunch, fixing lunch, who would be on the supper crew. And so she called names, and she'd say, you go here, you go over here to the lunch, you go to the supper. Well, me and Dale Bantram, we were the last one standing. And it kind of reminded me of back in school, in grade school, where you get chosen And you don't want to be the last one chosen, because that kind of looks bad. So me and Deb was kind of looking at each other, and I didn't know what to say, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to be doing, or am I going to be doing anything? So when everybody was chosen and they had all walked to their stations where they needed to be, I was like looking around, and Deb was looking around, and but Melanie looked at me and Deb, and she said, you two, y'all are with me for the week. And I was looked at Deb, and I was like, oh my, if you're with Melanie, you're going to be busy. And she did. She kept us busy. And I appreciate that, because if I was going to be there, I certainly wanted to be busy. And but getting back, like Brother Paul said, we fed a ton of people at lunch. And those guys and women and kids and youth would come in hungry, and we would serve them, and then we would serve ourselves. And then it was a cleanup time, because the job site was like, I'm going to say maybe 3 miles, Brad, or 4 away from the, yeah. So they would have to take the food up there, and then we would clean it all up and pack it away and bring it all back and put it up and all. So it took a lot of people working together to make all that happen. And another highlight of my day was one day when we went up to eat for lunch and to take the food, that, like y'all saw on the slide, it's something about church houses and the steeples. And when we got up there that day, they were setting the steeple on top of the church. And to me, that was the prettiest sight to see that. It looked small on the ground, but when you got it up on the top of the church building, it looked humongous. And I really loved that sight. But another thing was I went different times throughout the week on the days that I went, because Melanie, she wanted me there when she thought they would need extra help. So on Thursday, I ended up going late in the afternoon and staying and working and helping them through the supper meal. But also on that night, when Brother Paul talked about what all it takes to bring together to make a week like that happen with so many people in the organization, I got to sit in on their meeting, the Builders for Christ actually group meeting, or they actually meet once a year like that, and they were meeting on that Thursday night because everybody, different ones were actually, some of them moving out the next day going home, even though I think their final day was on Saturday. But it was amazing to hear each one of them stand up and give a report, and how everything ran for them. They kind of had feedback on their week on the job site, and we some of the ladies that was on the different committees, even in the kitchen, gave their feedback on how it had gone for them the week, and all the reports that everybody had to say was that everybody worked well together. And that just doesn't happen anywhere. It only happens when God's hands are on it. So in closing, I would like to read Proverbs 11:25. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. And I think that week, a lot of people got watered, because in sharing God's love, I think we are truly, richly blessed.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. In closing, you've heard things that we've gone and done, but one thing that we as a church has done this summer that we do each and every summer as well is when we host Vacation Bible School. And a lot of times we take that for granted, but Vacation Bible School is not just for our kids. We minister to a lot of kids throughout this community, throughout this town. We get the opportunity to love on kids that sometimes they may not get to feel the love that they normally feel at their house. and get to show them what a true fellowship and a church family is. So that's something I think we as a church need to be proud of as well, is that we continue to have Vacation Bible School for all of our kids, not only our kids, but for the kids throughout this community. Let's close in a word of prayer. If everyone would please stand, I'll close us out in a word of prayer. God, we thank you for allowing us to come and join together tonight, dear God. God, I just thank you for you being in our midst throughout this church year, God, throughout this summer. For God, for you helping us to be able to go to camps and to have Builders for Christ, God. And for God, for us as a church to be able to possibly witness to other people, but for other people also to be a witness to us. God, we just thank you for always being in our midst, for always being in our walk with you each and every day, God. God, I just pray that you just continue to bless us, continue to watch over us, continue to care for us as a church family, God. And God, allow us to continue to grow together as a fellowship, God, and God, to grow together in mission projects and other things that we do throughout this church and throughout this community. God, I just thank you for all that you do for us and for who you are and for what you mean for us. These things I ask in your name. Amen.